Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 452. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hello there, Noah. We have a big show, a very important guest, maybe our most important guest ever on the Linux Action Show this week. Find out how and why they switched to Linux, how they're moving their practice over to Linux, and how it could improve the lives of people throughout the nation. Plus, in the news, we'll be talking about some big updates on a major project we love to follow, and Dell's got some new hardware. I mean, like a lot of new hardware that runs Linux. We'll be talking about that and other stories. Plus, in the feedback, I've got a few questions for you this time, and you've got a few questions for us. But before all of that, Noah, do you know what we got?
We got the pick.
Oh, Noah. That's right. In fact, we have some really great picks. Super excited about the desktop app pick because I just recently started using it earlier this week, and there is a lot of other projects out there, but they've all kind of faded out, and this one's still got some life to it. But first, Noah, we start with our runs Linux this week. This is really cool. I think this is probably going to be your next phone. I mean, because I know you love Samsungs right now, but check out the ZeroPhone. The ZeroPhone runs GNU/Linux. And yes, Noah, that is it right there with the hardware buttons exposed. It's a Raspberry Pi Zero at its heart running Linux, and you can make one yourself for $50. It does calling and SMS, has some basic apps like calendar, calculator, phone book, file browser, web browser, and a music player. Plus, it comes with an SDK. And a lot of the other stuff that's just ARM compatible that runs on Linux. It also has some pen testing tools and some radio experimentation tools. It's about a candy bar size, like an old candy bar cell phone. Fits in your phone. Here's the details. It's based on Debian and Jessie. It can be tailored to suit your needs very easily, and it's upgradable. It doesn't need a separate distribution, so I think it's using Raspbian Linux, which is based on Jessie. So it's using Raspbian.
Okay.
And it's got a user interface.
They've customized it. They've customized the user interface to kind of be that phone. They're
using Python and they're using PyCLI. So it's a CLI stuff for Python, and they are actually up for rewriting a lot of that stuff. But that's where it's at right now. This thing is
I'm a Python programmer, so I respect that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice. A gamer and a Python programmer, huh? Damn, Noah.
That's right.
You are a man of many talents. So I think this is pretty neat. It's going to support all the programming languages that Linux could use, though. So if you don't want to use Python, I know a lot of you out there probably want to use Mono. I understand a lot of Mono fans. So you could probably actually, I don't know if Mono on Linux works on ARM. You might not be able to do that. Yeah, I guess this is right now the person that wrote this blog post at Hackaday. Get this, Noah. This kind of fits with the theme. It was writing apps for this thing for productivity in the healthcare industry. For everyday tasks and goals and things like that in the healthcare industry. Kind of on point for today's show. Very
much so.
So Noah messaged me yesterday with the wind chill in Grand Forks, North Dakota. It was negative 54 degrees. So I don't even know how you managed to get anywhere to pull off the interview that's on the show today, because at negative 54 degrees, I would not leave the house for anything. I have just a full disclosure. I planned today because we got a lot of feedback saying, yeah, let's do the follow-up on your predictions. I thought, okay, I'll go back. I'll edit it all of our previous predictions into little clips where we said what it's going to be, and we'll own up to it. And like a good boy, I was going to do it in Kdenlive Live because that's my preferred editor under GNU/Linux. But then, you know what happened? I finally got bit by the arch rolling. I don't know what happened exactly, but
you got eaten.
My main machine, my GNOME install is just terched. I just did a full system update, and now after I reboot and I log in, I get a black screen for a few seconds. I see my mouse cursor, and then it drops me back to GDM. And I just devastated, just because I just wanted to just sit down and start editing. I was so bummed. I loaded Budgie Desktop, so I got Budgie on there now. And I'm making that work. So some of my app picks and stuff are from that perspective of like, oh man, I got to get this work done, and now I need to replace some functionality. And it's just some good stuff that I came across. So my whole my machine won't log in, I can't get this footage edited. It actually worked out to be everybody else's benefit because we got some great app picks from it. And Noah and I scratched our heads, and Noah came up with this idea for today's show, which I think is a great idea. We can still do the owning up to our predictions I think if we get it within January, we're good. Because I'm really glad we're able to make room for today's episode. So my loss is everyone else's gain this week. So before we get into all of that stuff, let's thank our first sponsor over at DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code. Here's the thing. It's all one word, just like you're slurring it. Put it in there after you create your account, and you get a $10 credit. Now, $10 is like magic over at DigitalOcean because their pricing is outrageous. They have hourly and monthly pricing. I love it because hourly lets me experiment with open source projects and monthly lets me build an infrastructure that I can rely on for myself and for my business. DigitalOcean.com for $5 a month. You get 512 megs of RAM, a CPU core, a terabyte of transfer, 20 gigs of SSD. All of their rigs are SSDs. You can deploy all of them in seconds. You can go up to huge systems. I start with that $5 a month rig because that's such a great price and you can run it 2 months for free. But man, I think they're going to get, like 224 gigs of RAM or somewhere in that range is like the upper limit. So these machines can get just absolutely insane. They have the entire range of scalability, which is amazing. I was talking maybe like 2 weeks ago with Alan on one of our last Tech Snaps, and he talked about how they had a massive online gaming sports event, and Scale Engine was responsible for streaming to lots of users, like the most users Scale Engine's ever had to stream. And I think, I'm getting the numbers wrong. You can watch in TechSnap. I think he said something like they spun up like 36, maybe as many as 60 DigitalOcean droplets over the weekend to just take on that additional scalability. So
I feel like he did that just because he wants to compete with me.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, I know. And meanwhile, I'm just like, I've got like a handful of droplets. I'm cool too. I love their highly available store. What?
I said I got something for you. I have a plan. You'll find out.
All right.
I have a plan.
Ooh, I like this. Is this something we could talk about on the show, or is this like private and Chris?
Oh, this is something we're gonna do on the show, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I got something for you, Alan.
Right.
Okay. Highly available storage. Go ahead.
Highly available storage, lightning fast networking, 40 gigabits at the hypervisor. I mean, that's nice, right? And then you combine that with the SSDs, Linux machines, the running the whole damn thing, and then that sweet interface with that straightforward API. Just use our promo code. Here's the thing. One word, lowercase. Add it to your DO account after you've signed up, and boom, you've supported the show, and you get a $10 credit. Cooking with gas. Even if you've already created your account, go try it out. Just experiment. Experiment with something. Go, you know what? And for the heck of it, spin up a Fedora droplet. What, you got a problem with Fedora? I didn't think so. DigitalOcean.com. Use a promo code. Here's the thing. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the show. All right. I am legitimately excited about Albert. No, not Mr. Westro, who helps us out with graphics like the new TechSnap graphics. But that was awesome, well, Albert. Thank you. It is a launcher that replaces my old go-to, which was Synapse. And it's modeled after, it says on here, it's modeled after Alfred on the Mac, I think. And it hits the sweet spot. It's super fast. It's easy to set the hotkey to whatever I want. It gets what I'm typing in there, launches it immediately, does some basic things like math, web lookups right there in the launcher. And if you're on a desktop like Budgie, it's a great launcher for Budgie, and it's in the repos. So that's really nice. Couldn't actually get it to build and install on Arch, which is not, I usually come on here and say, it's in the AUR, just install it. Yeah. It's in the AUR. I don't know why it won't build though. I just didn't bother looking into it on this machine this morning. But it is a fantastic launcher. I've been using it for the past few days. I really like it. I mapped mine to control backspace. It's a little wonky on high DPI, but if you just expand out the settings screen, it all renders out okay, and it looks pretty good. And it's apparently in active development, which is nice.
Can you launch it with the super key instead of the control backspace?
You can set it to any launch key you want. You just might have a conflict. I don't. Okay. Yeah, I did control backspace or control backslash. I think it's backslash. There's one under the backspace key, just because that's not usually mapped to anything else, and I just do that across all my machines. And control's usually in the far right corner or left corner, so I don't have to search around for it. Yeah, I really like it. So it's Albert, and it's been a fantastic launcher for me. And one of the nice things, as opposed to Synapse, and I can't remember the other one I used to use, GNOME-Do. I believe both of those are no longer under active development. I might be wrong about that, but I think they both had just sort of been parked. It is dependent on Qt5, but it's written in C++. So essentially it pulls down like 2 Qt5 dependencies. The rest of it's all written in C++, so it works across any desktop environment you want to use it on. I have it with a dark theme on Budgie and just rocking. Love it. So check it out. The launcher is pretty sweet. The dream is real. The dream is real. Now, this next one was a recommendation that came into the show, and it came in for at least for myself at just the right time. So I want to give a personal thank you to, I think it's Mitco's, MIT Co's. He recommended this Cannonboard or Kanban project management software, which is a simple visual task board that is open source, and you can host it yourself. Or I think they also have, they might have a hosted one you could do for $30 a month. But I obviously would rather just throw it on a droplet myself. Anyways, what I really like about it is visually, I grokked it immediately. You get your overview, you got a board and you got a calendar, and in the overview, you get a backlog of tasks, your tasks that are ready to complete and tasks that are currently a work in progress. Color-coded, done in blocks, very simple to understand, tags for things like documentation needed or markdown. I really like it. You can visualize your work. You can limit your work in progress to be more efficient. You can customize the boards according to your different activities. You can generate reports and analytics. It's simple to use. You can access anywhere with a modern browser. It has plugins and integrations. You can self-host. It is open source, and the installation is super simple. I think it just requires PHP. I can't remember. I did look into the requirements, and I remember thinking it was not that bad. So it's Kanboard, K-A-N board, and it's the Kanban project management software.
What's funny is I have looked at different project management software for under Linux itself, and the biggest problem I found is trying to get that data synced across multiple devices, right?
Yeah.
If you have, you start one-on-one and you go to edit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Problem. But if you can get that into a web-based form,
right?
Or so it's available everywhere, and so that multiple people can have access to it. Now all of a sudden, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and it has some nice plugins too, which you might want to use in more of a business. It has database storage backend, so instead of using local file storage, if you want to put it in a SQL server, it'll support that. You can also, instead of having to host your own user accounts, if you guys are already all in on GitHub, it can use GitHub authentication, and it can also integrate with GitHub to manage GitHub issues, which is super nice. Also, if you're thinking it when I was talking about this, yes, it also supports GitLab authentication. Now you could really be cooking with gas. You could have your own off or on-premises, I should say, on-premises GitLab, and you could be using the users you've already set up on that on-premises GitLab to authenticate Kanboard. It also supports Google authentication if you'd like to do that, HipChat, Jabber, Mailgun, Mattermost. That's sweet. OAuth. So I mean, really, there's some really, really, really nice plugins. Rocket Chat, Slack. SMS two-factor authentication. This is a great one. So I didn't even go that far into the plugin list. Wunderlist, which I think you use, Noah, or you used to use, which is
I still use it.
It also supports integration with Wunderlist. That's really nice. This plugin allows you to import Wunderlist tasks and lists directly from the user interface of Kanboard by uploading Wunderlist export files. So that is a super great pick. So thanks, Mitco's, for submitting that to the Linux Action Show subreddit. And I'm going to be probably deploying it myself to help manage some of the tasks around here. And yes, the chat room asks, is there a Docker image? I would bet there's a Docker image. There's almost always a Docker image. The real question is, has that image ever been updated since they first published it? That's the real question. All right, Noah, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by...
Oh, it's brought to you by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to support the show and get $25 off a device. Or if you have a GSM or CDMA device you can bring, and you might, check out their BYOD page. If you have one you can bring, you get $25 in service credit. Now, the average monthly bill on Ting, $23. So you might just pay for more than your first month. Also, they have such great prices on some of their phones, which are unlocked with no contract. You just can use that money to take a little bit of money off a phone. That could be a super great way to get started with Ting. I love Ting because it's no contract, no termination fee, and you only pay for what you use. $6 for the line, minutes, messages, megabytes, and somehow they still manage to have the best customer service in the industry and the best freaking dashboard. You combine that with CDMA and GSM. If you're a little bit technical, you can pick whichever works better for you, or maybe you're working with an Internet of Things device that takes GSM. I kid, but there's a lot of them out there these days. Their dashboard is so nice. The tools that work on your mobile phone or in the web are great. Ting is a really great company backed by two cows. They've been around for a really long time, and they just want to change up the mobile industry. If you're a small business too, I highly encourage you to try them out. Here's a great way to see if Ting is going to work for you. Go to last.ting.com and then click on What Would You Save right there in the menu. You click on that, you do a little bit of math here, you figure out what your price would be. What I love about this is think about it differently too. Think about how if I took it, I do this. It's really not it's not even that big of a challenge, but consider it maybe as a slight challenge. If you use streaming music, stop, or pin them to your device, cache them locally. If you listen to podcasts, download them on Wi-Fi before you go. If you back up your photos or use SyncThing, Dropbox, or BitTorrent sync while you're on Wi-Fi. You essentially, what I do is I use the LTE network as a secondary data network. It's available for me.
Right.
I still use it for telegrams and doing some voice calls, but primarily I use my device on Wi-Fi because I spend all day, workday, plus some at the studio, and then I go home where I have Wi-Fi. Or I go over to a family member's house where they have Wi-Fi. And so for me, it's such a killer deal because I have 3 phones and I'm hardly ever cracking $40 a month. I don't have 3 phones, but I mean, I have 3 phones on my line. I pay for $6 for each line. Because Ting doesn't have like some sort of overall like market strategy about like having a video streaming platform with their own app store and their own branding and theming, they don't delay updates because they're not in any of that crap. They're just a mobile service provider that doesn't care how you use them. It's brilliant. There's no contract. It's simple to get into. And even if you're not ready to switch to Ting yet, but you're a cord cutter, they got a great blog. They went through all of the great posts from CES that were like perfectly targeted at cord cutters and did a nice roundup of the look at cord cutters stuff at CES this year. So check it out. Their blog is killing it for us cord cutters. Start by going to last.ting.com and then head over to the Ting blog, try out their savings calculator, look at some of their devices, see what Ting's all about. Last.ting.com. On Linux Unplugged this week, the story was breaking that Dell was releasing a whole bunch of new hardware. And we had Barton George on, who is the guy that runs the Sputnik project, which is sort of the skunkworks operation to get Linux as an official platform in Dell. And they've had some success. And so as a result of that, they're launching on a whole new line of hardware. They're updating existing lines of hardware, and they're rolling out new machines that run Linux. And one of the machines that's been getting a lot of attention in our audience, because I've been getting messages about it all freaking week, is the fact that they're shipping their Precision line now, one of their Precision line machines, the Dell Precision 3520 mobile workstation. Now, when you heard that, you perked right up. I'm not a big Dell person, so I didn't really... Why is the Precision line a big deal?
So we're a Dell reseller, and so we sell a lot of Dell machines. And I have been putting Dell on their computers since as long as Dell has been making them. And there are basically 2 models we fluctuate between. We fluctuate between the Latitude series and the Precision series. And everything else is, in my opinion, personal opinion, is garbage. Maybe yes is kind of a special thing, but for the most part, this Inspiron series, all that stuff is a bunch of junk. But so the Latitude series is kind of your ultrabook, I want to take it and go anywhere kind of computer. And the Precision is like I need a desktop, but I need it to be in foldable form factor. And Dell has done a bang up job over the years of making a foldable desktop that's very, very portable. It's not huge. It's not bulky. The power supply is, it's very small. And it's a very compact unit. And so we have a number of those out, architects, graphic designers.
Sure.
I have one personally that I use for a lot of video editing. It's just a very powerful computer. So to see Dell start shipping those with Ubuntu says to me that they are really catering towards a development audience, an audience where people want to spin up a lot of VMs and stuff like that.
Yeah, a professional.
And so to have that option available.
Yeah, a professional business and enterprise and people that are working in development as well. A couple of interesting things. Now when you buy one of these machines preloaded with Ubuntu, they're $100 less than the Windows 10 version, which is awesome to see. So you got this big one, this 15-inch one. There's also releasing an all-in-one workstation. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's kind of cool looking. It's an all-in-one. They're doing also a Precision. That's the all-in-one. The Precision 5720 all-in-one desktop with a nice screen. And I thought maybe I would play around with this big Precision workstation and try to just get a feel for what my build would be like. And so before we started the news, I threw one together, and I'll just kind of go over what I kind of threw together. So this would be a new Dell Precision 3520 workstation with a Intel Core i7 7820 HQ. That's clocked at it's a quad core at 2.9 gigahertz. It turbos up to 3.9. 8 meg cache with Intel graphics, with the 630 graphics on board, and it also comes with a Quadro graphics card, which is the NVIDIA Quadro M620 with 2 gigs of RAM. And then I also threw in the 15.6-inch IPS 1080 display, non-touchscreen. And they have other ones with like ones with a camera. So for like $100 more, you could get a built-in webcam and a touchscreen. I went 32 gigs of RAM. The processor I chose to have Thunderbolt support, unfortunately, does not support ECC. But this laptop, if you got the right processor, you could have ECC RAM on a laptop. And there is a category of workers out there, like in the scientific field and others, where that's a really big deal. I went with a 512 gigabyte M.2 PCI solid-state Class 40 drive, Intel Wi-Fi 8265, and a 92 watt-hour express charge battery, they call it, with just basically no service. There's just an absolute minimum bare service. My final price clocked in at $2,072. If I, like I said, if I up to a slightly nicer screen, which I probably would, it'd be like $2,100, $2,200 after tax and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, $2,400. I don't know what it'd be after tax. So that would be that's the Dell Precision 3520. So I wanted to compare that to the Oryx Pro because that's what in sort of the same class. That's what I'd be comparing it to. The Oryx Pro comes in more expensive at $2,313. So about $300 more expensive to buy from a local Linux vendor. However, there is a massive difference in the video card for me personally. The Oryx has a 6 gigabyte GTX 1060, whereas the Dell has the older Quadro, which is, from what we can kind of tell, probably based on a GTX 800 series graphics card. So that's a massive gap in video performance between the Oryx and the Dell. The Oryx quite handily doing, I mean, the 1080s and 1060 series are just great cards to begin with. The Oryx also has a 200 watt AC adapter versus 120 or whatever the other one was, which might charge the battery faster. I don't know. Otherwise, in just about all respects, they're pretty much the same. The Oryx, though, had a slightly faster clock, too, on the CPU at 3.5 gigahertz. I think that might be their turbo, though. I'm not sure. It's an i7 6700 HQ. Pretty good rigs overall, though. I mean, they're both really good rigs. You're not going wrong with either one. And at $2,000, that is a fully stocked MacBook killer desktop dominator. Like nothing in the Apple line touches that. Not much in the PC line touches that.
And really, there's one other big. It would be a big deal for me, maybe not for a lot of other people. But the Precision is going to support docking.
Oh, really? Now, see, they don't offer a dock with it, though. Wouldn't they? Is that something that would come up after I get further into it? How does that work with?
Usually they'll offer it somewhere on the site, but anything that has an E in front of it is considered is dockable. It works with the E series dock. And so,
really?
I don't think they make a Precision that doesn't offer the dock that doesn't come with the E. It's not an E series.
Really?
So, and the thing is, one of the big things about docking is you can get docks now that have 3 display connectors at the back, and so I can set my laptop down and have 3 different displays connected.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really cool.
Looks like it has a 3-year hardware on-site repair with remote diagnosis included in the price. So that's the service for the Dell, which isn't too bad. To be honest with you, that's not bad. I'm looking for the docking station though, dude. I'm not seeing docking station, but
does it say E in front of it, in front of the model number?
I believe you. Well, it's just Precision 3520. Shouldn't it be E 3520?
Maybe it's not an E series. That might be why then.
Oh man, the dock thing would be huge for me. I would love to have that because I'm always hooking stuff up. Yeah, they're trying to sell me. This is so funny. I've chosen Ubuntu, but they're still trying to sell me TurboTax and antivirus. Like this is what Dell really sucks at. This is just the worst. Look at this. Like look at all this stuff they're trying to sell me. I'm on page 3, by the way, after I've configured the rig. This is the 3rd page in of upsells.
How many pages were there for System 76?
The 1 page.
4, 5, 6?
1 page after I got after I selected the machine I wanted, and it took me 30 seconds. I don't see cards, and they have cables and dongles, but they do not have a dock.
You better get some dongles.
I can get a dongle if I want.
Can't live with them.
So my final price without my upgraded screen is $2,162 for the Dell, with shipping with Ubuntu 16.04. And a Core i7 7820HQ. That's a great processor. It's a great processor. Kind of a bummer on the video, though, because the video almost kind of completely kills it for me. I just spend that kind of money and not to get a modern graphics card. I mean, I understand the Quadro is great for a lot of people. I just don't have a workload that needs it. It's not like I get any benefit from a Quadro. So, all right. Well, good to see Dell, and the all-in-one's exciting. It's good to see them updating the XPS line. I think the bigger story to take away from it is they're seeing some success, and Dell's in a pretty good position right now because I got the sense, although Barton wouldn't say it on air, probably because he was trying to be Mr. PR a little bit, but I got the sense that they're seeing a really big uptick in MacBook switchers, the Mac Exodus,
Sure.
because
Oh, sure.
the XPS is bezel-less, it's thin, it's light, it's high resolution. So I think Dell just got themselves in a very good position for a certain client base at the right time. Because if you think about it, if they hadn't launched the Sputnik program years ago, they wouldn't be in the position they're in now. Now they're essentially launching an iMac replacement and a MacBook Air replacement with the XPS line and a MacBook Killer with the Precision line. I know it's not all about the MacBook. I'm just, after talking to Barton, that was the distinct impression I got walking away from our conversation. And he would know, being the guy that runs the Sputnik program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking about people in the know, you know who else is in the know about Ubuntu Mate? Wimpy, that Wimpy guy. And so, I was sleuthing around on the Patreon like I do from time to time, and I noticed that Wimpy posted something exclusive for his patrons. So I thought, why not go ahead and share it with all of you? And we'll have a little exclusive news here. So, I mean, maybe you're already a patron. You should be. I would assume you are for Wimpy. But in case you're not, there's some big news. We got an update on Ubuntu Mate 17.04's progress, and I want to talk about what excited me in here. Are you ready, Noah? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm ready for the news.
Well, hold on. Wait for it, Noah. Wait for it, and go ahead. No, okay, it's not working. I'll just read it raw dog. My annotations aren't showing up. So we have a couple interesting things here. There's going to be some big updates. First of all, I want to talk about the project that I'm really excited about, Brisk Menu. Ike's been working on that from Solus. Brisk Menu is a nice, efficient new launcher for the Mate desktop, and it was funded by Patreon, and that's out. I'm seeing it show up. Wimpy packaged it for Debian, so it's showing up in other distros. Also, there's going to be artwork by Daniel from Elementary in the new version of Ubuntu Mate. So Daniel's working on the art, and Ike's working on a launcher. I mean, that's all really big stuff. But what was in here that made me want to share it with you guys is the news about Mate Desktop 2.0. This has only been posted in this Patreon update so far. I'm sure the news will get out very soon. He says the reason for this jump is that Mate Desktop is now GTK3 only. All legacy GTK2 code has been completely removed from the entire project. Wow, that's a hell of an accomplishment. As of the current Mate Desktop 1.17 development snapshots, which will become 2.0, Mate Desktop can only be built against GTK3+. We feel this achievement warrants the 2.0 version bump, and you guessed it, this Patreon has funded the upstream developers who have been working on this. In addition to Mate 2.0, there's also going to be support for lib input, which could help you out a little bit, and beginning support for trackpads, touchscreens, and Wayland. So Mate is beginning to implement Wayland support. It's just baby steps towards Wayland. Don't get too excited. You're not going to be running Mate on Wayland just yet, but they're working on it. That means, updating Kaja, I have Mate, Mate Terminal, all the other apps that are in Mate to get it, or Mate, to get it working on Wayland. There's also going to be more improved interactive notifications in Mate 2.0, and there's also been other slight improvements. But I just think it's overall looking like it's going to be, I wasn't sure if Ubuntu Mate 17.04 would even really be worth like a lot of attention, and now I'm thinking this thing deserves like a full-on review. So it's looking really nice. I think there's some major improvements. You're going to see the official version bump to 2.0 announcement very soon. I think adoption of lib input is massive and beginning to adopt Wayland. I like it all. I think they're really striking a good balance of keeping a traditional desktop paradigm but not getting left behind. And now they've rid all GTK2. How are you feeling about the project overall, Noah? How are you feeling?
I think that there's a couple of things. One, I'm excited to see that they are kind of following this. I think the development cycle that works really well on an Ubuntu style release is when you make a bunch of the changes in the interims and then you polish for the LTS. Make those changes on the interim, polish for the LTS. And if Mate is it seems like they're kind of following that. They're going to take 17.04, they're going to make the changes. 18.04 comes out and they polish for that LTS. I think that's a really great paradigm to kind of follow. The second thing is Ubuntu Mate, despite having both of us kind of playing around with Solus, very seriously, and I'm still haven't totally abandoned myself from Ubuntu proper and using Arch on the side, I still find a really great place for Ubuntu Mate, and that is in anything that is a utilitarian kind of computer. The studio machine that's here, the machine that I update my work orders on downstairs, anything that just has to function as a utility. Ubuntu Mate is still my go-to choice. And it's a very good choice for anyone that is completely new to Linux. The entire reason that he came up with the Ubuntu Mate project, right, was to kind of facilitate for his parents.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
and what's
I
cool?
still use it in that regard too.
I like this. Alpha 2 is scheduled for release on my birthday. What a nice little birthday present for me. Also, speaking of the Brisk menu, Wimpy on his G Plus profile posted a PPA that's compatible with 1610 and 1704. So if you'd like to try out Brisk on 1704 or 1610, he has a PPA up, and we have it linked in the show notes. Nice work to Ike on banging out that Brisk menu. I think it's looking really good. Looking really good. All right, if there's a news story you would like to hear this week and didn't hear it on the show, please consider going to linuxactionshow.reddit.com and submitting it, voting it up, or commenting on it to help sort out what's going on with that story. We appreciate all of that at the subreddit. Thank you very much. And that's all the news for this week. We're about to have our most important guest on the show ever, Noah's dad, how he got switched to Linux, how he's moved his practice to open EMR, and how it could benefit doctors all over the nation. No joke. Before we get into that, I want to thank Linux Academy for making this segment possible. LinuxAcademy.com/unplugged is where you go to not only support the show, but sign up for a 7-day free trial of a platform designed to help you learn from Linux if you're a total beginner or a longtime expert and just need to refresh on some new topics, or maybe go back to the basic. LinuxAcademy.com/unplugged. Course schedulers for your busy schedule. Labs to give you hands-on scenarios, which is super nice. The lab servers match whatever distro you chose for the documentation. I love that. They have self-paced, in-depth video courses. You can take this stuff with you on the go. Android and iOS apps for also going on the go. Not that kind of going. I mean the studying kind of going. Note cards, the community forks, community stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members, and Learning Paths, which are a series of courses and content planned for by instructors for very specific careers. And those instructors are also available, real human beings, for help on these real topics. Everything from Linux basics all the way up to the big stuff and the complicated abstracted stuff like AWS and Azure and all that stuff. LinuxAcademy.com/unplugged. Go there. And you can also check out their weekly roundup that got posted a little bit ago. One of their first big batches of students that passed in 2017. What a great list. Lots of people doing AWS stuff there too, which I would too. If I was in the industry right now and needed to get up on that kind of thing, that's exactly where I'd go. LinuxAcademy.com/unplugged. You got to say it like that too. It's /unplugged. You can put your hands up in the air if you want. /unplugged. Just kind of put it out there like you just don't care. Yeah, exactly. So I thought I'd pull out a bit from the interview to set you guys up with how Noah's dad got started with Linux. You're probably not going to be too surprised by some of the details, but I thought it'd be a good introduction.
Explain to me a little bit about how the open source community has benefited your practice. Like, for example, I noticed, I mean, you being my father didn't have a whole lot of say in the decision, but you're going to run Linux here. But how has that worked out compared to when you first started and you started working with Windows?
Right. In fact, I'm going to tell the facts as they are. If somebody gets offended about it, I can't help it. I deployed a Windows server. It used to crash regularly once or twice a month. Okay? And we had to troubleshoot, then something will go wrong. We had to go and troubleshoot it and reboot the system. And I was getting tired of it. And then, of course, you came over and said, Dad, there is another system, Linux, and you ought to try it because it seems more robust. Mm-hmm. And then you introduced me to the Red Hat Linux, and I was surprised when we deployed it. It didn't go down, and I thought, hey, this is the way to go. So I did not take too much convincing by you to deploy the whole thing, all Linux. Sure. In fact, at one time, I think we had some Windows clients with the Linux server. Right. Then finally, you convinced me, hey, we can deploy Linux on all the computers.
Right, sure.
Your dad is a snazzy dresser. I mean, you're not a bad dresser yourself, but next to your dad, you look like you're dressing down a little bit. I would say you're a professional-looking guy, Noah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty good. So that's sort of a little setup on how the whole Linux thing started for Noah's dad, Dr. Jalaya, and it goes from there into converting his entire practice and then potentially even sharing some of those gains with other doctors.
So we're here at the Heart Institute of North Dakota, and I'm quite familiar with this place. I actually grew up here because this is my dad. Now, the interesting thing about my dad is that, he has always kind of been on the cutting edge of technology, and I think that's kind of where I got the bug. And he has been running his medical practice for 30 plus years, and in that 30 plus years, he's made a lot of technological advances. So I guess I'll call you Dr. Chalaya for the purpose of the interview, but tell me a little bit about what it is you do as a profession.
I'm a heart specialist. I'm board certified in internal medicine. I'm also board certified in cardiology as well as interventional cardiology. So I have 3 board certifications. So when I came and started the practice in Grand Forks, I was actually working for the hospital, local hospital, and I developed the cardiology department for them. But I kept looking at the way I was practicing, and I found that a lot of the things I was doing was repetitive. And I said, there should be some way of computerizing this concept, so I don't have to do it, over and over again the same way. So I kept thinking, is there some way we can use electronics to make things ready? This was before they even thought of electronic medical records. So I actually used a word processor. And a kind of Mickey Mouse kind of a system where I could use a word processor to store the reports, then I can copy and modify it for the next visit and so on and so forth. It was the so-called kind of a template that I developed that was like 16 years ago. I was thinking about this while I was working for the hospital, and I thought, maybe if I were to have an independent place, then I could implement all these various ideas. And that was the main reason why I left the hospital. It was not because I didn't like them or anything like that. It was just so that I have flexibility to develop my own things.
Sure.
So I came out here about 17 years ago, almost 18, and I implemented some of these ideas. And so one of the things I thought was, I wanted everything electronic. The medical record system, even the other ways of doing things. Like, for example, I do imaging called echocardiogram. I want to store them digitally. And that was the infancy of the echo digital system. So we developed our own little networking called they call it the picture archiving and storage and all that retrieval PAC system. We developed our own Mickey Mouse type of a PAC system. Actually, it worked very well. We also developed a system for Holter monitor. That worked well. Then I came across, people were getting into so-called electronic medical records. It was still infancy. And I found a kernel of an idea that was developed by some guy in Canada. And I saw that, and I immediately thought this had tremendous potential. It was a very rudimentary, simple system. Then I thought to myself, I can take this and expand it. So I actually purchased the rights to copyright to a copy of that. Then I started developing a more complex. One of the things I wanted to do was have a system that would dictate itself. In other words, you start with the you answer a simple question like touch screen. You say yes or no, yes or no. When you say, do you have chest pain? When you say yes, instead of simply leaving it that way, it responds by saying the patient has chest pain, period. Converting a touch screen to a complete statement.
Sure.
That was my original idea. And developed this template, expanded it tremendously, and it worked extremely well. We computerized everything, and the problem was it worked extremely well. But then the rest of the industry started coming up with electronic medical records. So in a way, without sounding boastful, I was one of the early pioneers in developing electronic medical records. But I ran into a problem. When the other medical record system came out, the government said you have to have it certified. And of course, I thought my medical records met all the requirements that they wanted. But there was one problem. I said, how much do I get? What do I need to do? They said, you have to pay a fee to get it certified. How much? They said, about $100,000. I'm a small practice, solo practice. I don't have that kind of money to, get it certified. So I was looking around and said, I was still using my system, but I was getting punished by Medicare because my software is not certified, I had to. I got 98% of the billing. I couldn't get the last 2% or whatever. There was a penalty for not having it certified. Then I think you came up with the idea. You said, Dad, I found this electronic medical record system that is open source, that is fully customizable. And you showed me, and I thought, hey, this has potential. And now I've started using it because that is already certified.
So so show me a little bit about how you actually use this new system. So the new one is the new system that you're referring to is OpenEMR. It's an open source web-based software, and so kind of one of the advantages for him is he travels around, in rural places like North Dakota. There's a number of different hospitals that employ his services, and so basically they can't afford to have a full-time cardiologist on staff. So he will travel to these hospitals and he'll participate for 2 or 3 days and do some procedures. And you do pacemakers and implanted defibrillators, those kinds of things?
That's my specialty. I specialize in pacemakers, defibrillators, and biventricular pacers and defibrillators, which are very sophisticated that not too many cardiologists. In fact, I know of no cardiologist that is doing it in small rural hospitals. I'm the only one who's doing it, to the best of my knowledge, in the entire United States. So we've been doing that in small hospitals, and this software has become extremely useful for me.
So one of the things that he needs to be able to do is get access to this medical records wherever he is. And so it being a web-based system means he doesn't have to install any particular, client-based software. He doesn't have to manage any sort of certificates. The software just kind of works. He visits a website and it works. So we have created a patient here that we call test case, which is basically a patient for the purpose of testing things. And that's something that we can go ahead and put up on the screen here, and he can go through it.
So here I picked up a case called test case. Maybe I'll let you handle the mouse because you can open as I tell you. So you'll see. Let's assume we're going to create a new encounter. In other words, new visit. A new visit is called a new encounter, and here it is. And now we can go in and create a new consultation. See, we can create a brand new consultation here. So now on the consultation, I can go into the various parts of the consultation. As you know, consultation contains history, what the patient complained about, what's going on with him, and then the physical examination. And then I do the physical examination personally, and I do the assessment and the recommendations and medications. So it makes them very, very easy, and you can do it while you're in the patient's room. So when you walk out of the room, when I walk out of the room, the consultation is completed. So I don't have to go back and dictate anything. So I like this system. In fact, we want to expand it to do something like what we did before, that every time you click a yes or a no, instead of just simply saying yes or no, it can also generate a statement telling, like the patient has chest pain or patient does not have chest pain.
So I know one of the other things that you are going to be utilizing is the calendar API inside of your EMR to tie to a new service that you're going to be launching. Can you talk about you're free to to plug the service a little bit, but then how it ties into this system?
Sure. See, I'm not only a board certified internal medicine specialist and a cardiologist. I also have a passion for developing and teaching people how to get rid of up to 85% of chronic illnesses without pills. This is not based on some crazy idea. This is based on science. I reviewed thousands of articles on how to cure diseases without pills and injection. This is proven science. For example, studies have shown that simply avoiding all animal products and walking 4 miles a day can drop your blood pressure, drop your blood sugar, drop your weight, and even reverse cancers. And I don't tell patients to stop their conventional chemotherapy. No. I tell them to do some additional, nutritional supplements along with it. These are all evidence-based. That means I have to have at least 3 to 5 articles in reputable medical journals before I would recommend. So I not only teach conventional medication, I practice conventional medicine, but I also do nutritional treatment. And so now there's so much of interest, I decided to spin off another site, a new service. This will be called the Otter Health. And you are the one, I should give you credit for it, because you are the one who told me, Dad, did you know that otters do not survive on their own? They have to always survive in a group. At least two have to live together.
Habits, yeah.
Right. So I thought this is a great idea. We help each other. I want to help my patients get better, and they help other people get better. So we're going to call this Otter Health. So we've developed the calendar. We are using the calendar. We are customizing the calendar so that it will graphically show where I'm at all times. There are some days where I'm not available, since the staff knows that they cannot put any patients in there, but then also shows graphically where I'm going to be. And we're going to have even an interactive, situation where people can actually log in and say, listen, I want Dr. Chalaya to come and talk to our group. They can literally schedule themselves for this as long as it's an open slot.
Right.
If I'm already busy doing another talk that day, obviously they cannot choose that. So we're going to use technology to actually make things better for both us and others, because I don't want to double book, but then everybody has access to this.
So when you're doing that with the calendar API built into OpenEMR, and then you're tying that in, with the website hook. Now, I know that you've taken a lot of time in-house to develop these custom forms, and obviously as an experienced cardiologist, now these forms, are very well tailored to the practice of a cardiologist. Are these forms something that you're willing to release back to upstream to the community for other cardiologists to use if they switch?
Absolutely. I told you the previous software, the form that we developed worked so splendidly for 17 years. So all we're doing is, because that was not certifiable, at least at a nominal cost. So we are going to duplicate the same form in this EMR, and when we have completed the project, or if people say, hey, we'd like to have whatever you developed so far, and we'd like to add or enhance it, oh, absolutely. I'm willing to share it with everybody.
One last thing, kind of unrelated to the OpenEMR thing. I know that you've been using one of the older System 76, and you're transitioning into a new Oryx Pro. I know you haven't started using that as your daily driver yet, but as far as like, you're a person that just kind of wants results, right? Like you don't dive into the minutia of politics and the different things. Can you talk about just how that laptop has served you, how well, and how going forward, what you're going to make decisions based off of?
Okay. Yes. I based on your advice, I ordered that about 3 years ago, and it's so light. I've got a fast processor. I've got a solid-state hard drive. As you know, I realized the utility of having a hard solid-state drive. It boots fast. It boots in about 3 seconds. Okay, and I love it. And it's so light that I can carry it on the plane. And it is my main laptop. I have done everything with it. I've got a 1 terabyte drive in this. I'm almost filled up with it. That is why I want the new one, so I can put a couple of
Free drive base in the
okay.
one, yeah.
And you told me that one has a faster processor too.
Newer generation,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to use it, and I can tell you, in fact, it's interesting. Somebody asked me, do you ever have virus in your system? And the answer is absolutely not. Never had a virus, never will have it, because it's I mean, listen, anybody out there, they want a system they don't have to fuss over.
Outstanding. And you are looking for someone that you've done a lot of the layout-based forms. You're looking for somebody to combine some of these layout-based forms into a one solid form. And so if there's anyone out there that does PHP development, I think is what OpenEMR is, you're looking for to hire a part-time developer to integrate some of that stuff, right?
Absolutely. I would love for somebody to work with me. We'll basically show you what the forms we have, the logic, and if somebody can, create the logic in EMR, we'd have a fantastic system. The beauty of the system is the report looks like somebody actually dictated and typed it up. With real grammatically correct statements. It is indistinguishable from traditional dictation. That is the beauty of the old system, and I'd like to bring that into the system. I'm willing to work with any developer who wants to work with us.
Cool. Well, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Fascinating. You know, in some ways, what your dad's describing, where it asks you a series of questions and then it fills in the forms, like does the patient have chest pains? It's like a very early bot. He's talking about a very early where, and I don't even know if he realizes he's talking about a bot, but it's basically your dad's describing the function of a bot.
I mean, he designed these macros inside of OpenOffice that, like, you know, back then it was Star Office or some antiquated thing. But,
yeah, Star Office.
Thing, but it had macros. But that whatever it was, it was like it had macros, and you click on it, and then it would spit the information out or whatever. It's kind of a joke. But
what I like about your dad is your dad's experience echoes that of Hadia's experience, my lady Hadia's, because she wanted to use Linux in her practice simply because it was problem free, and she was done with Windows 7 and needed to go to something else. Didn't really see the point in investing in another platform, because she's mostly using Chrome for her EMR system as well, and it just needs to be able to scan files and have some things locally that are safe and, you know, with an encrypted home directory. So it sounds like it works pretty good for your dad, and it sounds like there could be an opportunity for maybe somebody to help him and maybe make a buck, and also sounds like there's an opportunity for other doctors to benefit from the work too.
Yep. Yeah. So we're working with the people at EMR. It's kind of great. They have the Slack channel and stuff that we can kind of communicate and stuff. And so as we're getting information on how to their OpenEMR is about to release, I think it's a public thing, but they're about to release version 5. And that's going to come out in just the next couple of weeks. And they have spent the last couple of years kind of tooling the underpinnings of the EMR, but the interface wasn't great. And now in this latest release, they are totally redesigning the UI to make it very, very friendly. And so, and, you know, I was talking, you know, we can get in. I mean, there's in the chat room, there was a gentleman, UJ. Seems to be a medical professional. And so him and I have been kind of going back and forth about some of the details, the technical underpinnings, you know, like how it does like the diagnostic codes and the billing codes and stuff, and how those are all automatic is really great. It just makes for really dry podcasting. But if you're curious about it, it works flawlessly, ties within right to Availity, so he can do all of his billing and stuff like that. And if you want more information, of course, you can use the contact form, and I'd be happy to share it with you.
Same with if somebody maybe wants to help with the forms, maybe use the contact form and ping Noah or Noah at JupiterBroadcasting.com works too. You know, just one thing that kind of struck me about the whole segment in general, with Hadia and with your dad, if more medical professionals, and there's a huge part of the medical industry are these small practices like your dad's that are extremely effective at what they do. They're ran well by somebody who really knows what they're doing, and they're not these massive, ginormous hospitals. And even if at that level we could start seeing more adoption of Linux and open source to save costs for them, there might be a ripple effect. I mean, it's a small one, I'm sure, but there really could be a savings for the overall healthcare industry if they looked at systems like OpenEMR and Linux and compared it to things like Windows and SQL Server and some of the other solutions out there that have like $50,000 annual support contracts. I mean, the pricing in these systems is just insane depending on the industry.
It's funny, $50,000 in the medical industry. I mean, that's peanuts, man.
Yeah, I know.
We were talking about Epic, which is a competitor, and I mean, you're talking $10-20 million a year to support million with an M a year. That's a support contract. That doesn't even cover the cost of the thing, and then all of the different plugins that you have and stuff. So I mean,
I worked with I worked with a gynecology office that's, I think they were $50,000 a year for their support, and it was a really early, horrible, required ActiveX EMR system. I mean, it was bad. Yeah. And that's how much they paid. So this in some ways could be a revolution for the industry, and it's nice. I saw he was using Unity on Ubuntu with Chrome. Yep, like it's a pretty good setup for this kind of thing.
They have both Chrome and Firefox.
It does work.
He just lets them choose. It's totally split depending on what people want to use. Yeah,
man, boys, thank God that kind of stuff isn't being done with ActiveX anymore. Wow. Well, that's a pretty cool. That was a pretty cool chat. It was great to get your dad on the show, and that's the Linux Action Show at Linux and open source, revolutionizing the medical industry. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But before we go, we got some great emails to get to and something pretty cool to tell you about. System 76, our sponsor for this segment, has launched their Superfan contest. And I think this is like the superest of the Superfan contests, being that this is the second and it's better than the first. And it's all up and ready for you to learn about at system76.com. Superfan 2 has launched. They got a video up there telling you a little bit about it. I wonder, the Legend of the Lake, huh? Legend of the Lake. It makes me think about KB Lake. I think there's some KB Lake connections here. So find out more. You could get, if you win, like we did last year, you could take a trip out to System
Isn't it
76
Cabby?
headquarters.
Hi.
Hi.
You
Cabby?
Yeah.
I've
Isn't it
always
Cabby
said,
Lake?
I think it's KB Lake. How do we find out? How do we find out? How do we?
I don't know, but I guess I'm just thinking
How?
if
Yeah,
you
if
say-
it's me, yeah. If I go left, you go right. Is that what happens? I go left, you go right. I see. I understand how it is. I see. I've lost all faith.
All right.
You've lost all faith in me. Hold on. No. We're gonna no. How to produce? No. How do you pronounce? Jeremy, you gotta tell us. I gotta know because
Although actually, how to produce Cabby Lakes in your house would be really
that
cool
would.
too. Like if there's a
How
way to
is
figure that
Cabby
out.
pronounced? All right. Oh, this is a video about it. This would probably say right.
Oh, good.
Everybody's got to have a big old intro, don't they? Okay, that's not going to be any good. It looks like it's pronounced the official marketing types. I don't know. Oh, we got it. Wow, wow. Look at this. This is from
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Intel Corporation second quarter 2016.
No, I'm not going to do that. I just can't do it. But the chat room says it's Cabby with an extended A. So I'll go with the chat room. Cabby Lake? What did I say? KB Lake? I said
Thank you.
KB? Like I said like KAE or something like, or KAY, KB Lake.
Something screwed up. Anyway, here's what I do know how to pronounce. I know how to pronounce.
Do you?
Chris?
Are you?
Well, yeah, it's Chris. It's just Chris, and it's just there's too many Chris. It's just, anyway.
That is
Who
true.
wants to know about SAB NDB in Docker? Is that right? No, this is screw me up.
How many years?
screwing
What are
me
you,
up.
2 years into podcasting now? What's going on right now?
All right.
What's okay? Here's
You want to know about SAB, NZB, and Docker? It's in the feedback statement. I take it we're supposed to cover it. So apparently, Chris would like to know about SAB,
Noah is
NZB,
the-
and Docker. Chris writes it.
for those of you behind the
Here's
scenes.
a GitHub link.
Noah is the master of the feedback. Yeah. So I have an idea. I'm thinking about switching all my. Well, I feel like I'm gonna get a whole bunch of crap if I say this. So I'm in the thinking stage. All right, I haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking
You could
about
just ask the question rather than telling them why you're asking the question.
Does anybody have any? Okay, good point. Does anybody have any success in running SAB NZB and Sick Rage in a Docker container? Because let's say in theory I wanted to pick a distribution that didn't have a high software availability, but it has Docker. And so is it practical? Are you finding it to be practical? Is it staying up to date? Is it easy to manage? Is it easy to access? Or is it these things get thrown up on the Docker hub, they never get updated? It's a pain in the ass. You have to constantly do these crazy things to get it started. I'd like to get a feel for how real it is to take some of the applications that aren't available in the repo and run them as Docker containers. And I have a link to one in the show notes if you're kind of curious what I was talking about. And then I have another request, totally separate, not related. However you get a hold of us, if it's either through Twitter or the subreddit or the contact form or YouTube comments, I would like to hear from you about open source developers or projects that have GoFundMes, or I was kind of thinking more about Patreon or bug bounties, something, because I was thinking about maybe doing a special on a couple of different, maybe high or medium profile or unknown open source projects and how we as a community could fund them. Like just give them like kind of the beginning of 2017, a little bit like, because file system developers and Pulse audio developers and theme creators are starting Patreons. And the first reaction is like, oh my God, everybody's creating a Patreon now. But if you think about it, this is exactly what we might want as a community is if we could make if we could just make it a sustainable side project for some of these people, some of the stuff we love will stick around longer. It's better for all of us. And I'm not saying any of us have to do anything, but I just thought maybe we could do an episode where we went through and said, hey, did you know that the Pulse Audio developer guy now has a Patreon? Hey, did you know that the ButterFS developers or the Bcache FS developer has a Patreon? And if you're interested in that, this is how you can make future development possible. So I'd like, but I don't know all of them, so I just need input from the audience.
That really appeals to me. Actually, the very first episode of Linux Action Show you and I ever did was about how non-devs can help projects, because people like me, I want to support the open source community, and the only way that I know how to at this point is to get a bunch of people to use your project and try and draw a lot of attention to it, in my day job. That's the best I can do. I would love it if there was a way where I could just open my wallet and put some money up. There doesn't seem like to be a defined way to do that in a lot of cases. And the places that do have it don't seem to be the ones that are really struggling for cash. So anyway, Wolf writes in and he says, "Hey guys, I wrote you a while back, but I've been watching religiously, I promise. Anywho, I stumbled upon something I think it's pretty cool and I would share. So I've been using Arch for a long time as a distro, and blah, 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 blah. He talks about Arch Anywhere, and he says he found this on accident. Fortunately, he had an old machine sitting around that he wanted to put it on it, so he did, and it's very impressive. Yes, this is pure Arch, not a derivative. This is simply a graphic installer. Now, I personally always prefer to install Arch via the CLI, but this shatters the old barrier, making it easier for us noobs to give Arch a go, so I wanted to share it. Now, interestingly enough, one of the reasons that I use Antergos instead of Arch is because there's no graphical installer, and I just want to install Arch. I did it once to be able to say I've done it, and then I never wanted to go through that experience again. I want to plug a USB key in, click a bunch of buttons, and have Arch installed. And
there have been times too where I have like 15 minutes to get the OS installed, and it would either be Ubuntu. It's either go like, because I usually have I have one right here. I have a thumbstick with Ubuntu on it, right? I usually have one around here, and then I have a thumbstick with Antergos on it right here, and a thumbstick with Solus. It's funny, I have all three of them right here. And whichever one, in some cases, because maybe it's like a live situation, whichever one's the quickest install, or reasonable install, I'm going to go to. And that is a real use case sometimes. For a lot of people, they just don't want to spend the time. So, yeah.
I thought that was a cool mention.
So yeah, that is nice. Thanks, Wolf, for the that is cool. The Arch I have not looked at the Arch Anywhere project, but it makes it looks like installing vanilla Arch pretty easy. James writes in. He says, "I'm in the process of trying to learn as much as I can about setting up content for Plex. A couple of subjects have turned up, but I haven't really gotten as much help as I would when searching. Make MKV seems to drop many of the extra feature content. Are these options I can use to get MKV to extract more of the content? And number two is there anything that can extract the menu data from a DVD? This would be helpful for naming extra content. I know I could play DVDs and make notes on the menu. I hope to find ways to do this faster. And is there a way to either allow Plex to play in ISO or some other format that incorporates the DVD's original menus?" So do you want to take on the DVD one about the menus real quick, and I'll answer the other ones?
Yeah, I have not found a way to get an exact duplication with MKV. I can spit all of the individual files out in individual MKVs using make MKV, and so you could keep all of the content. But as far as like just duplicating the disk, I've not found any way to do that with make MKV. I'm still using K3B.
I don't mean to, but is it worth it? I mean, to be honest, only a small minority of those DVD menus are worth it. Most of them, you sit around, you wait for the animation, and they take a long time, and sometimes it's not obvious how to get to like the hidden features. I mean, they're not always that great.
I'll give you an example.
Some of them are okay.
One of the things I give you an example. One of the things I use it for is so the DVD menu is almost all the time they'll have like a music loop and then the options to play, right? And I have to have noise to sleep at night. If it goes totally silent, I wake up. So one of the things I'll do is I'll put on a movie and I'll fall asleep, and then after the movie gets done playing, it just goes into that loop of the music loop, and so it's just kind of a constant thing, and then I fall asleep. I don't know. I just like having
check
the
out
duplicate of the DVD.
You might play. I mean, it depends on the noises you like, but mynoise.net has lots of different noises, and you can mix and match, and they let you custom.
Do they have guns?
I don't know if they have guns. Okay, so Make MKV seems to drop many X. So Make MKV is a great tool to open up an MKV file and drop like French language and subtitles if you don't need it, or add those things if you do need it. That's what Make MKV essentially does. Mm-hmm. Or no, I'm sorry, that's not Make MKV. Make MKV is. Oh, I'm thinking of what is the tool because that is a really good. Oh, I don't have it here. It has been a past app pick. Go get it's like MKV Toolix or something. I'm sorry, I don't remember the number. Make MKV is the tool that will take a bunch of files and make the MKV file. And I would say consider trying a small little Plex install with a small library, so you don't go too far into this. But a lot of times now in Plex, it automatically gets all the DVD extras. There's an option in and I think in MB too, in recent versions of Plex, to go get all the extras, all the trailer stuff, the behind the scenes videos, all that stuff. It doesn't always do it, but it does it for a ton of movies. And it might, if you're already looking at using Plex anyways, it might be worth trying a small collection of your most important movies, do a little temporary library, and see what happens. Because you might just be doing all this work for nothing. So that's something else to consider. And as far as Plex playing ISO images, I've never personally tried it. I would very much recommend getting them into MKV files and dropping the DVD menus, because the other reason for that is once you get it on your Plex library in MKV or MB, it is now playable on anything. Because once Plex can play it and transcode it, it can stream to your phone, to your tablet, to your Roku, to your TV, to your Western Digital Live, to anything that can receive an H.264 stream. And the value of that is huge. Like you can go super high resolution files and you rely on that pretty damn good transcoder to spit you out a little 480 image if you need from time to time. I do it over my MiFi connection every now and then. And it works fantastically because it allows you to go as high resolution at the source as you can and then match the endpoint screen. And the perfect setup, I love the NVIDIA Shield TV with MB, Plex, or Kodi because it has a ton of native codecs. It can do hardware accelerated playback. So I just get the raw file from the media server. It's perfectly played back using hardware decoding on my television. I get all of the extras for just about all of my movies built into the menu without having to do any extra work. Kodi also has a bunch of good stuff for this. So it's something else you could look into is Kodi with Plex as a back end now, because there's now a Plex plugin for Kodi, just like there's an MB plugin for Kodi. This could be super badass depending on your front end setup. So that's our super long way of saying, James, you might want to consider moving off ISOs. You don't have to. You can definitely make it work. There's definitely ways to do it. Noah does it. But if you move over to MKVs and you experiment with Plex automatically getting the extras for you, you might just save yourself a ton of time and hassle. And if you really, really want them, you could create a folder for the movie and make MKV files for each type of extra and name them. Or you could potentially put them all in one MKV file and then just make sure your player allows you to select which video track you're watching. Those are all options as well. If you have a question for the show, jupiterbroadcasting.com/contacts, where to go to get it answered. Also, the subreddit will often work, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. If you have something you want to ask me or Noah or something else like that, I'm at ChrisLAS on Twitter. He's at Kernel Linux. The network is at Jupiter Signal. Noah, anything else you want to plug, sir?
I don't think so. At Altispeed is our Twitter handle for Altispeed, and we're trying to tweet out more and more pictures of things that we're doing and stuff. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a party.
And sometimes it's snowy. Never know. I've been doing a bunch of behind-the-scenes videos on my personal YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chris Fisher. There's like 22, 23 total now. Not all of them are behind the scenes, but a lot of them actually are because I'm usually filming during the day while I'm working on these shows. So if you'd like to see another angle, in fact, I might have a few clips from this very episode, check it out at youtube.com/Chris Fisher. Last but not least, we are live on Sundays. You can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get it converted to your local time. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.
Here's my piece of advice.
It's extremely important. You just one rule, and it's the only rule: no glitter in the house. Period. No glitter ever. And I say that, and you know what happens? Glitter comes in the house. No glitter. When I talk, my nose vibrates. It's now time to have our most important. What's that? I was doing a show. Sorry, what was that? Sorry. No, it's fine. You're good. I was just gonna podcast real quick. Should I podcast or? It's kind of good. We cool. Waited to start because Hadia is making a smoothie in the. You know, she don't care. She don't care. She don't care. She good. Go ahead, baby. Give it another pull. I haven't started the segment yet. Give it another spin. You're good. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. You're doing great, baby. Daddy. All right. So there we go. Now I think we can start. All right. Are you ready, or you need to keep screwing around? I'm not sure. Which one? Do you have a preference on which one you read?
My preference is to keep screwing around.